I was talking to Mr. Anderson, Mr. Dunning, and Mr. Weiss, we were talking about some of the students' responses to our first assignment, and we started to notice that everybody has a little bit of a different opinion of what living off the grid means. Some students think that maybe it's isolating yourself from other human beings. Some students think that it's living in the middle of the wilderness, but it's actually kind of a combination of all of those things and basically just being more self-sufficient. So I'm going to go around and, since we're social distancing, I can't get too close to too many people, so I'm going to actually interview my family members and ask them what their definition of living off the grid means. And then we're going to supply you guys with some facts at the end just to kind of inform you and kind of sum up this first introduction assignment.
Living off the grid means solar power, wind power, providing your own heat source by building a fire to cook your meats in that you caught yourself and not paying anybody for it.
One way you can live off the grid is not relying on grocery stores to supply your food. So that means growing or harvesting your own food, such as this lettuce that we grew ourselves in the garden. It's more healthy and it's delicious.
Living off the grid means reading a book instead of watching a movie.
The grid means supplying your own running water. Also, it means supplying your own electrical source, possibly using solar panels.
Cutting and harvesting your own firewood for heat and cooking.
Hey, Mr. Weiss here. I was asked to describe what off-grid living means to me. So, in a nutshell, a lot of times people hear that term and they think, well, you're out in the wilderness in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to live off the land and with whatever resources you can scrape up. Not necessarily true. If you look behind me, it's pretty wooded. I'm standing in a pretty cleared lot. So there's game in the woods. There's plenty of room here to grow some food. The Delaware Bay is less than a quarter mile from where I'm standing, so the potential for fishing is there. And to give you an idea where I'm going with all this, if you look behind me at this house, you can see it has solar panels on the roof. There's also a natural gas meter right there on the corner. Of course, you can see the utility pole behind me. And you can also see some propane tanks. What went on there is the house was converted, well, their heating system was converted from propane to natural gas. And the tanks were owned by the homeowner, so nobody wants them, so there they sit. But with those solar panels on the roof, if you had a battery backup system, the potential's there to run on solar all day for your electrical needs and run off the batteries all night. Every house around here in this neighborhood has a well, so you're using electricity to pump water from an aquifer underground for your fresh water, for drinking, bathing, whatever. So if you lose that utility pole and disconnect the natural gas and go back to propane, that house is off the grid. It's not connected to a delivery grid of any kind. Utilities are not delivering water, fuel, or electricity. So that would be technically living off the grid. So you can do it right in your own neighborhood if you have the space and the resources, which we do here, although I could see where in a crowded neighborhood, fishing and hunting could get very competitive very quick. But anyway, that's my take on off-grid living. Have a great day.
Good afternoon. we're talking about sustainability here and what it means to be living off the grid. So I'm here at the family farm, trying to get a view here behind, freshly tilled, and I'm using the last bit of daylight on this gloomy day to kind of see if I can get rid of some of the weeds that are creeping in along my fence line. But the field behind me soon enough will be planted with a lot of different veggies, different varieties of lettuce, kale, salads, greens, tomatoes, all sorts of zucchinis throughout the summer, cukes, and different things like that. So this is one of the ways that we sustain ourselves here, and also provide a little bit of a market garden that we sell at our farm stand that's out on the boulevard. So what sustainability and what living off the grid means to me is resiliency, I'd have to say. And if you don't know the real definition of resiliency, you look that one up. It's something that I think every man and woman should strive for in their life and in their abilities. But resiliency is really the name of the game with this.
You know, living off the grid has been a big discussion here lately. Nobody knows how they would do it or why they would do it, or, you know, especially with this coronavirus going around. But when we talk about this, you know, people talk about living off the grid. What is it? A couple things are, okay, do we live in a house or should we live in the woods? A lot of people don't know exactly what to do. But for me, my biggest thing would be shelter. Besides, you know, obviously food, heat, and all that stuff. But, you know, you need a place to keep cover. You need a place to be safe and everything. So one thing I decided to go ahead and do for this, just in case anything did happen, was go ahead and build this building. I just did this yesterday, me and Jebediah. We went ahead and built this. We have a couple things to finish, but we just wanted to make sure we had shelter to cover ourselves. Inside we can go ahead, do plumbing and all that other stuff and everything, and do an outhouse, or if we want, we can live in the woods. But the biggest thing for me is to have shelter over my head and keep my family safe and grow some more hair. So anyway, just wanted to go ahead and put my input on this whole living off the grid, because you don't have to be inside of a house, or you don't have to be in the middle of mountains to live off the grid. You can simply be where you're at and live off the grid. You don't have to have all this fancy stuff. You don't have to have electric. Look at the Amish, they do it every day. So they basically live off the grid. Yes, they do have some help here and there and everything, but cell phones and all this stuff. But you know, all in all, they pretty much do live off the grid. They use horses, they farm the land and everything else. So that's one thing you want to take into consideration with everything that's going on. You never know what's going to be happening here in the future, and you just want to take every precaution possible. So for me, if I have shelter, I'm good to go. But for the time being, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm safe, my family has plenty to eat, and actually probably next week or so I'm going to start garden boxes. So, but not saying the crops will grow in time, but I'm sure going to make sure put every effort towards everything to go ahead and do what I can. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully talk to you guys again sometime soon. Bye.
Living off the grid means enjoying the little things in life, such as enjoying nature, which is free, and solar lights.
Powered by the sun.
Powered by the sun. Through these anything else.
So basically, living off the grid can be as simplistic or as complex as you choose to make it. It could mean cutting off all of your connections to things like sewer, water, electricity, and Wi-Fi, or it could be as simple as just cutting off one connection and learning to live a little bit more simplistically. Basically living a minimalist lifestyle, reducing waste, and spending only on necessities in life. Every step that you take towards living a more sustainable lifestyle is a step in the right direction. So we hope you learned from your introduction assignment, and we look forward to sharing all of our tips about living a sustainable life and maybe one day learning how to live off the grid.